We like to start on time because we're respectful of everybody else's time, and there may be other folks joining in, hopefully, as we move forward. But Andrea and I have put together a little bit of a workshop today, so we hope you will indulge us and participate and provide the input. But to kick things off, and in light of the fact that we're in a new year, I hope everyone had a good holiday, a safe holiday, happy holidays, and you are excited about 2021. But to kick things off, why don't we kind of do what we've done before, and we'll go around the room, introduce ourselves, kind of who we represent or what we're with, why we're here. And then I would ask you to answer this one question, and that is, what is it that excites you guys about the Ohio River Recreation Trail, and what keeps you excited? So for me, you know who I am, Jack Sutton. I'm one of the co-chairs. I represent the Indiana shoreline, you might say. And for me, what excites me about the Ohio River Recreation Trail is the whole concept of this linear greenway waterway trail that provides excitement and adventure for people up and down the Ohio River. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to David Wicks.
Hi, David Wicks, and I'm with River City Paddle Sports. And what excites me about this is the opportunity to host Zoom meetings. And what I'll also do, just to let everybody know, is I'm going to mute people on this end when you're not talking if you don't unmute yourself, or if you don't mute yourself. So you might have to unmute yourself. What excites me about the Ohio River Recreation Trail is it's an opportunity for me to get out on the river more often. And I just like paddling, and so it's a selfish part on my part, but I just like getting out on the river. And then hopefully I can share that enthusiasm for the river with my friends and colleagues and folks who I don't know. That's what really excites me, is the possibility of encouraging more people to enjoy the life that I lead.
Thank you, David. How about you, Brewster?
I think, am I on mute?
I hear you.
Oh, good. I'm sorry. Well, similarly to David, what really motivates me is sharing what I love with other people in hopes that they'll love it too. And also the idea that we are creating something that makes it easier for so many other people to both engage personally and enjoy it and benefit economically and community development wise from the result of our work.
Great.
There you go.
Andrea, you're next up on my video array.
Sure, I'm Andrea Ireland. I'm with the National Park Service Rivers Trails Conservation Assistance Program. I'm working with Russ Clark from the Kentucky Field Office, and we're providing technical assistance to this program, project collaboration. And I'm working with Jack on doing a little strategic planning for you.
Thank you, Andrea. How about you, Russ?
Oh, thank you. Russ Clark again with Rivers Trails Conservation Assistance Program and National Park Service. I'm really excited about this project. I've been from the very beginning, primarily because I like to help people kind of realize their dreams and visions that come together through this type of planning process. And the Rivertown Review Program is really focusing in on the communities and how they can better take advantage of the great resource that they have in the Ohio River Valley.
Thank you, Russ. Jody?
Hi there, I'm Jody Robinson, and currently I'm with the DeVoe Good Foundation, which also manages Vision Zero Northern Kentucky. And what really excites me is we're no longer turning our back on the river. For so long, our focus was away from and just engaging people and communities to interact actively.
Great, fantastic, thank you. How about David Rudder? You got to unmute him, David Wicks.
Well, I was trying to do it with my space bar because that's normally how I do it, so I can just mute, but it wasn't letting me do that. So anyhow, David Rudder, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments. I love to paddle, and anything that helps make it easier and safer, I'm all in favor of. So the digital guide is what kind of really gets me excited on this.
Great. Thank you, David. Francis?
If there's a trick to unmute, is that the, David, do you usually just hit the space bar? I never knew that trick. Is that a hack? Okay,
You
well,
have to hold it.
okay. I just usually have to find my mouse and then go find my mute button. Anyway, Francis Minoan, have been involved with this crowd since we sort of started, but was also involved with the creation of the Great Miami River Way in the early days of that, and which is now, it was one entity and now it's a different entity, and at one point was involved with Tri-State Trails as the co-chair as well when Frank Henson was here. So I am very interested in all this as well, but it just always boggles my mind that we have this great resource with the river, and that it is not, without having a convening or focused entity drawing everyone's attention to it in the way this group does, it won't happen on its own, and the river doesn't have its own voice, so we are its voice.
Thank you, Francis. How about David Hudson?
Okay, am I unmuted? Okay. Yeah, well, hi everyone. With David Hudson with River City Paddle Sports, and my big vision is, my father always told me that the good Lord only gives you so much time on this earth, but the time you spend in the woods and on the water is bonus time. So my passion is to help people get more bonus time on this earth.
Awesome. Thank you, David. How about Jerry?
Mute,
You're on
Jerry.
mute, Jerry.
Hi, there we go. Jerry Schulte, 35 years working on the Ohio River, almost 30 of them with Orrsenko, and working with also the Adventure Crew organization, which brings us Paddle Fest and Ohio River Swim. I think what I get excited about is the fact that I can continue my my work on the Ohio River and help debunk a lot of the fallacies and a lot of the information that's out there that people just think there are still catfish that are as big as Volkswagens and all that sort of thing. So it's great to have a place and an opportunity to continue to provide information, safety information about the river.
Great, Jerry. Thank you. And Richard Harrison.
Richard Harrison with Orrsenko, and similar to Jerry, not nearly as eloquent. I've loved working with this group because it really pulls together everything that Orrsenko does. I spend a good part of all my presentations talking about how great the river is and how important it is to recognize that. And so this group really puts that into motion, and I think is a great testament to how much improved the river is, and really what a great resource it is.
Thank you, Richard. And finally, Chris Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. So Chris Lawrence with Thomas More University and our biology field station along the river. I'm excited working with this group and this initiative. First of all, because I like the people involved. They tend to be smart, progressive, and interested in improving the quality of life in the community. Secondly, I like the sort of the interdisciplinary or the multiple effects that the trail has on the economy, the environment, and human health. It's just a win-win-win all the way around, and something that I like to get behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey, Jack, there's one more person. It's not Brewster Rhodes' iPhone. It's Brewster Miller's iPhone. He's called in with a dialing connection.
Oh, okay. Brewster Miller, go ahead. Can you introduce yourself and tell us what excites you about the Ohio River Recreation Trail?
Absolutely. Yeah, my name's Brewster Miller. I'm with River City Paddle Sports, and I think what really excites me is just making people aware of all the small towns and their beauty, and then also making people aware of the beauty of the Ohio River that a lot of people don't get to see every day.
Great, thank you, thank you. Well, folks, we've got a full agenda, so I'm going to just jump right in with a little bit of housekeeping, and then Andrew and I will kind of get into the meat of everything. But we want to get a lot done by 2 o'clock. We're going to be respectful of everybody's time. Hopefully we get that done. If we finish a little early, that's great. Everybody's familiar with the chat function. We're going to use it for some input gathering today, so be comfortable with that. If you're like me, I'm going to be on mute when I'm not speaking because I have this golden retriever that likes to bark at the squirrels in my backyard. So if you hear a loud barking, that's my my little friend Ruby. But to jump right in, we want to go maybe to the next slide, Andrea. What we want to do first is recognize and celebrate some of the accomplishments we've had over the last year or so. So we've remarkably, 2020 has been a crazy year. It's unusual. We've met most of our meetings virtually, but there has been a lot of things accomplished. And I just want to take a couple minutes to recognize that. So for example, a shout out to David Rudder and completing the digital guide, getting it up on running. It is a phenomenal tool. We're getting accolades all across the country. People are looking at that and probably trying to steal all the great ideas. So kudos to David, OKI, and the entire team. You may all remember we hosted 6 webinars last year. And I don't know the exact head count, but each one had often over 100 per webinar. So hundreds of people have been engaging with us through those educational activities. In late 2019, we hosted a meeting with 3 states, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and their DNR agencies and affiliations. And that really got buy-in early from the state agencies. That meeting was held in Lawrenceburg at Ivy Tech. Jerry Schulte's working on a master safety plan. I know that project's underway. Thank you, Jerry, for your work on that. I think a big thing we should be proud of is our association with the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. You know, that is a national park entity that runs from Pittsburgh to the Pacific coast. And we are an underlying function of that, if you will, and developing a great relationship with Derek Schimmel and the superintendent out of Omaha and so forth. We have expanded our overall number of partners. If you look at our webpage, we have nearly 45 or 50 partners that have signed on to be, you know, kind of little champions in their community for the Ohio River Recreation Trail. They see a lot of value what we're doing. And finally, and there's been a lot of things, but finally, I just want to mention these Rivertown Review projects that are underway. Round 1, we've completed with New Richmond, Ohio, Carrollton, Kentucky. We're having a public meeting with Rising Sun, Indiana this week. We had a meeting with 3 communities in Southeast Indiana. They're across the river from Louisville. So we're impacting a lot of communities with the Ohio River Recreation Trail. So everyone should feel really good and proud of the work that's accomplished in spite of a crazy year of 2020. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Andrea and let her outline the agenda for today and a little bit about what we want to accomplish and our expectations for everyone.
Thank you, Jack. Just to touch on those successes, that is pretty unbelievable. And we just really focused on the really big pieces that we accomplished. There was so much work that went into all of that. And I was really impressed with how everybody managed to pivot to make these things happen. As much as we would like to be there in person and realize it would be more effective, we are so pleased with, and you should be very proud of how much work has been done despite the COVID restrictions that have been put upon us. So we think that at a later date, we will have a big celebration about all of this great work that's been happening. So we have a new year and we have a continued break with COVID of not being able to get together. So that's given us a little bit of time to evaluate and affirm the work that this group is doing for a sustainable future. I would like to recognize the fact that there is a history here way before I came into the picture. There's a history of effort and leadership, committees, participation, and accomplishments even above and beyond what we just talked about. And much appreciation to the people, all the people who have brought the effort this far. But are there ways that we can work better, smarter, more effectively? We're trying to explore those options together through some strategic planning over the course of a few sessions. We realize that we cannot do it all in 2 hours. The work that we have in front of us could take maybe a week's retreat or at least a weekend's retreat of being in person and facilitating. And we are having to shift how we're doing it. But so there will be more than one session, but we feel like this is really a good time to at least be making the effort towards where we're going and how we're going to do that. So from my perspective, I see a collaboration that is getting work done, and you really moved to sort of a new phase of development. There was all that enthusiasm in the beginning, and we started putting the pieces all together, and now we have something that it's not becoming unmanageable, but could perhaps be more manageable in a better way. So that's good, but how are we going to do that? So we may be moving into a new phase of the organization. Early in my participation, there were committees that were listed: the executive committee, the organizational structure or governance committee, the community outreach and activity committee, digital guide planning committee. Thank you, David Rutter. And a planning committee. So I'm not sure, some of those seem to have some overlap, but what ended up happening was that those committees were formed, and maybe we didn't take enough advantage of those committees to do the work. Maybe we didn't engage people who had volunteered or were voluntold to be on those committees. Maybe we haven't used those appropriately enough. And just because, and I'll use this term with the utmost respect, just because the 3 retired guys are doing the great work of a CEO, is that the most effective way to manage the organization? I certainly hope that the assistance provided by the National Park Service RTCA program, Russ Clark and myself, as well as Helen and Faith, who have been helping us on the Rivertown reviews, has been helpful. However, we are not permanent staff of the ORRT, and our technical assistance, while it might be long lasting, is not meant to be forever. And so how can we be more sustainable, more efficient, and continue to be successful? That's the purpose of this strategic planning. Again, Jack and I realize we cannot do this in a short 2-hour time frame, and instead we'll break it up into several sessions, and we need, appreciate, expect, and value your participation and interaction in this. Perhaps, and I think that Jack might talk about this a little bit, some of these pieces that we already have in place, whether we're going to confirm them or change them, we're not always clear where they came from. So maybe they were filled a need for something that was appropriate at that moment, and it was one person who put it out there and everyone else said, this is great, we'll go with this because, geez, I don't want to have to do that work anyway. So we're hoping to get more input broader buy-in and better ideas or more robust ideas as we go forward. So here's the agenda. It's primarily an introduction to utilizing the a collaboration toolkit that is being developed by the National Park Service. That is a collaboration toolkit that we are the guinea pigs for. I attended a workshop and they said, who wants to use this tool? And I was the only one who volunteered. So I'm hoping that all of you will help me in that respect as well. If there's something about this tool that we will use pieces and parts of that you see could really use some changes, please let me know. Send me a comment, send me an email, because I already have a list a mile long of things that need to be changed. So it will be helpful if you as fellow guinea pigs can help me to do that. We're going to be talking today about the survey that she took, our areas of focus. We're going to be reviewing for clarity and possibly change our mission, vision, goals, and strategies to get us on the same page and heading in the right direction. These are our objectives over here, basically using those tools. So this elements of collaboration, we want to say that strong teams, of course, have the right people at the table. They have good working relationships. They have shared purpose and goals, an agreed upon decision-making model, and communication skills with strategies to address how it functions. We're using parts of the tools from this toolkit, but I wanted to provide you with an overview of the whole thing so that you understand where these parts are coming from. So collaboratives and collaborations are like molecules. You know, molecules are made up of atoms sticking together. And while atoms can have certain abilities and powers by themselves, once they combine in a molecule, they have different powers. So hydrogen's highly combustible in the presence of oxygen, a combustion agent. But when you bring two hydrogen atoms together with an oxygen atom, you've got water. How appropriate for this group. Not explosive, can't catch fire, different powers. So something similar is possible when groups with different interests, like all of you, and abilities come together, bringing your individual strengths, skills, and connections. And you can do something separately that none of us could do as well, perhaps, individually or even at all. But it only works if the atoms in your molecule or the people in your organizations represent, are connected and aligned toward common goals. So do you see collaboration at work in the Ohio River Recreation Trail? It is, this is a collaboration. When those individual efforts come to the table and bringing all of those skills, strengths, knowledge, and community connection, that's the realm of what's possible. And it can be substantially expanded. I love this quote. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And who's in the boat, right? Who's in the boat that's taking us down the river? Raise your hands if you're in this boat. Are you in there, Francis? Is that your boat? No, okay. But that's a great picture, and it really shows how everybody's working together to make all those miles happen. and enjoying the scenery along the way. That's a great rainbow. So you might have noticed that we repeatedly use the words team and collaborative, and people often ask if it matters if you call yourself a team or a coalition or a network or an alliance. And it really doesn't matter. Whatever your group thinks you want to do is fine. But it's interesting that the Ohio River Recreation Trail doesn't lay claim to any of these things. We don't put those in our name, but we are essentially a team, a collaborative, a partnership, a coalition, an alliance, and a network. And at some point, you might want to determine if that's a problem. I don't think that it is, but it's hard to separate the project from the process or the team when it's just called the Ohio River Recreation Trail. So whatever you call your organization, you need some essential ingredients to succeed. And these are those essential ingredients for success. Some of these may look very familiar to you. These are the things that help your team to work together effectively towards common goals. They fall into roughly 3 categories: people, plans, and processes. And you will be seeing a lot of these essentials. They might look familiar to you because when we asked you to take that survey, these were the things that were represented in each of those questions. And I'm going to let Jack talk about the survey that you took.
So yes, obviously the survey was extensive, but if you remember back in doing that, it zoned in on those 20 essentials of collaboration. And the intent of the survey is to do a couple of things. Obviously, is to tell us where everybody is at one point in time. That's really all it does. Is when you took that survey, you made some decisions. You looked at a range of scoring each statement from 1 to 5. And it was encouraged, if you read the directions carefully, you were encouraged that if you were waffling between 3 and 4, lean towards the 3. So those with the lower scores will demonstrate that those are areas that probably need a little more attention. Those with the higher scores, 4s and 5s, are probably by consensus, everyone feeling pretty strong about. So it was an interesting survey. We had invited 35 individuals to take the survey, and that group was made up by, we have about 23 people who are on the original steering committee list. That's a list that was put together in November of 2019. There are a few people that have ventured away and have not actively participated, and there's quite a few people that have been actively involved every month. But in addition to the original 23, we reached out to another 12 who had been involved with us either through the Rivertown review process or just some of our other initiatives over the last 10 or 12 months. So 35 people were invited to participate. We had 19 responses overall. So that represents a little over 50% response rate from the aggregate. When I looked at that in a little more detail, of the original 23 steering committee members, we had 8 responses. So not as strong. About 35% of the people that are labeled as our original steering committee responded to the survey. And I also want to recognize, and this reflects back to Andrea's point, that this is a tool the National Park Service has never used before. So we had 4 or 5 people that had difficulty with their PDFs, and they had to kind of submit their responses more than once. So I've shared that information with Andrea, and that may be a learning opportunity for National Park Service going forward to make sure their fillable PDFs are functioning. But I appreciate everyone who saved it more than once and resent it back to me. I knew that was a little extra effort, and I certainly appreciate it. But as we got those results, then they were plugged into an Excel spreadsheet, and what you're looking at is what's called a radar diagram or a spider graph. So if you look at that web on the left side of the screen, it pictorially demonstrates how the survey responses came out as a whole collection. So that what you're looking at is basically 19 responses we got, this is where we scored. So if you look at, say, 3 o'clock on this imaginary clock, and you can read collaborative value, that was one of the categories you scored, and we scored somewhere between 4 and 5. That's strong. What that says is, as a group, everyone felt very positive that we were meeting those criteria for strong collaborative value. Conversely, if you look at, say, 11:30 on this proverbial clock, the diversity, equity, and inclusion scored low, between 2 and 3. And so that tells us, hey, that's an area that probably needs some attention, probably needs a little bit of work going forward. So maybe, Andrew, if you go to the next slide for me. So here's where we kind of charted out that spider graph. These areas highlighted in yellow were the areas that scored the lowest, basically in the 1 to 2 range of responses as a whole. So you might say under that first column, people, welcoming culture, why did that score so low? Well, it really is a reflection of diversity, equity, inclusion. And as they look at welcoming culture, it's do we have the right people at the table, and are we encouraging them and doing everything we can to keep them there? So it's not that we're not welcoming and smiling and like to have people come. I think the bottom line is, do we have the right people in the room? And when you look over to processes, we looked at diversity, equity. We talked a little bit about that. Plans, roles, responsibilities, adequate resources. I think everyone would agree, since we have 0 financial resources, our financial resources are not adequate. But so that's kind of collectively, I think they're not surprising how these responses mapped out. And if you go to the next slide, the next tier in blue are really those responses that were, I would say, the middle tier, but in the 3s range. So participation, shared vision, distinct mission, goals, strategies, which we're going to work on more today, success measuring and continued learning, decision-making, systems accountability, and healthy norms and behavior. So these are the areas that, again, we collectively as a group, survey says that we probably need to be working on those areas in yellow and those areas in blue. The ones that scored high, 4 or 5, those are the ones we need to celebrate. And, we should take time going forward to celebrate those too. But, if we want to make this organization more effective and get better, we want to work on the things that need our attention. So that's the real takeaway that I wanted to share with everyone about this survey, is that as we move forward and sort of drill down on this, it's a result of what everybody collectively shared in the survey. Again, I don't think it's very surprising, but it validates probably where we need to spend some time moving forward. Now, before I hand it back over to Andrea, before we move on, let me just open it up. Does anybody have any questions kind of needing clarification on the survey tool, or how the responses were tabulated, how we got to this point? Andrea and I'll try to address any questions that you might have at this point.
Jack, one question is on the people. You were referring that welcoming culture could have included who's in the room. Isn't that more number 1 of representation of who's in the room? And, we don't have a great representation of the different roles and people who use the trail.
Well, probably you're right. I think there's overlap, and Andrea, you might want to help me with this. I think, this is sort of a toolkit, and when you drill down to each one, when I looked at welcoming culture, if you scored low, it basically said, understand, do you have right representation and right people in the room? So there may be some overlap there. And certainly with all things in that people category, there's a certain amount of overlap. Would you agree, Andrea?
Yes, definitely. I think all of these have overlap, as we'll see as we go through the modules that you use to work on them as well. And where we scored high, that's only going to be beneficial to us in working on the other ones. So we may have some leverage or some strengths to carry with us to help us to do the other work. I think it's going to be mutually beneficial.
Any other questions about the survey and these results so far?
Yeah, Jack, this is Jerry. With respect to the diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's number 20 on the list. I struggled with that because of the expectations that the question actually addresses regarding the development of planned policies or practices. I'm not sure that we have intended to do that. And I'm not sure that, I don't know where the expectation that you have to do that comes from. But I'm not sure that that may be the appropriate question to ask for all circumstances.
So you're saying that the question that was on the survey was not probably appropriate with regards to that topic?
I'm just saying that the expectations it identifies, such as we have developed a plan, policies, or practices, and we apply them consistently or inconsistently. I don't know that that's fully applicable in all cases, and I don't think it is in ours.
Okay.
So I think it's a question formulation issue more so than a practice issue on our behalf.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think
I
that
would say where we are in our maturation as a organization, certainly some of these things we haven't, spent much time on or thought about. But I think what I'm learning about this tool, and it's a tool the park system would put out across the country to all sorts of groups. At a minimum, it's things we should be thinking about these things at some level moving forward if we want to be sustainable.
And to be honest, I haven't quite looked at that module specifically to see what the activities are in it to determine how they're going to approach that. So that will be interesting when we get to it, and it may raise more questions than provide us answers. So
great, thank you.
Good point, though. Okay, so so you take those essentials, and then we're going to put them, or this tool puts them into these different modules. And there's 5 modules of convening the right people, cultivating relationships, clarifying purposes, confirm governance, and elevate communications. Unfortunately, at least for me, not all of those essentials fit neatly into this outside ring in a logical order. So it's not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 go into the purple category, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 go into the green category. It doesn't work like that. But by the time you move through all of the modules, you will have covered all 20 essentials. So for instance, convening the right people. These are the essentials that are addressed in there. And I've highlighted the ones that we identified through the survey that are yellow, where we may need the most work or possibly scored the lowest. So that's where the welcoming culture and the roles and responsibilities come in. But we can also touch on things that we didn't maybe score as poorly on, but they help to confirm or expand the other essentials that we will be addressing. Here's cultivating relationships. There's that welcoming culture. I'm not quite sure why it isn't with the convening the right people, but we're going to find out about that. So these are the yellow and the blue essentials that came out to be addressed within that module. Clarify shared purpose and goals. This will be very important today because this is what we're going to be focusing on. And notice how many of those essentials fell into this. This indicates that we do need to have a better direction and make it more well-defined with some goals so we know where we're going and how we're going to get there. So all of those blue and yellow essentials are ones that need to be covered under this module. And each module comes with a set of tools that you can or cannot use, depending on if it's appropriate for your group. But each of them is laid out to be a full workshop, sometimes 4 hours, sometimes a whole day. We're taking pieces and parts of these to be effective in the short time that we have and to try and address the things that are most of value to us. Elevating communication. I think that there's some things that we do really well with communication, and there are other places that we can maybe improve. Confirming governance. What are we, or who's in charge? Who's doing what? Are we effectively using those committees? Are we sustainable? What's going to happen when the 3 retired guys decide that they really would rather just go out and paddle? Are we gonna dissolve, or is it going to move on to another form of leadership? So we definitely want, you know, the retired guys to be able to get out there and paddle. So how can we all contribute to this? So this is another big category that we will be working on. This will take a session of its own, obviously, with the roles, responsibilities, and accountability. And there's that diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm really surprised that it formed there. But if you take a look around on our little Zoom call here, I wouldn't say it's very diverse in some ways, but what people bring to the table may be where that diversity happens. So who else can we include to have a better, to be more diverse and equitable? So if you go through all of the modules and you go through the activities, it is designed to come out with some products, and those products get put into a collaboration charter. So it's kind of like the field guide to your organization. It's what you can refer back to as you move along. It helps with continuity. So if you change leadership or you change roles or you're bringing new people, including new ideas into the group, the collaboration, this gives you some parameters and some guidelines so that you're not starting from zero and you're not reinventing the wheel, so to speak. That doesn't mean that these things shouldn't be revisited within the progress of your organization, because things change and you come to a different phase in your organization where maybe you've accomplished some of your goals and you're moving on to new goals or a new way of doing things, or you might have to look at being a more formal organization. And that's part of what we'll be looking at with the governance. So the pieces, and we already have some of these pieces, but are they right? Are they true? Are they good enough? Are they, do they accurately convey what we're trying to say? As those pieces get done, we'll put them into the charter. And I think Jack, we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so we're going to transition here. This is the time in a real meeting. If we were in person, we would take a stretch break. We'd get a bottle of water. We'd feel, you know, energized. But we're about ready to jump into some interactive exercises. So thank you for your patience. We've been at it 45, 50 minutes here. And this is where we're trying to head. We want to get to a point where we have a charter. To me, it will be a stake in the ground. It will be something that we can reflect on 6 months, 9 months, 12 months from now. And those who join us will understand what we're about more substantially or substantively. But what we want to do next, if you go to the next slide, is really drill down.
Excuse me, Jack, I'm sorry. The other piece of this is that this conveys outwardly too what the rest of the world sees you, and it sees you as, and it can be valuable for when you're trying to recruit new people or also when you're trying to go for funding. This helps you. These are your guiding principles that helps you to define what it is that you are seeking funding for, why you should have that funding, what is important to the collaboration that you would want to seek that funding, what other networks you want to join. And so this is helping to put those parameters around everything that you're going to do. And before you move on, Jack, I just wanted to once again open it up for questions, because I did go through those modules pretty fast, and I'm not always clear how they are going to work yet, but as I get into them, I'm seeing it. So I just want to make sure that I'm conveying at least what I know to you clearly. Questions?
And are these modules things that individuals do by themselves, like they go off after this phone call and do module 3? Or is this something we do as a group? Or what are the modules?
Right, so those modules are the 5 on the outside, and they are a package of those essentials and activities to work on that we will work on as a group. You don't have to work through the whole thing. In fact, in our case, we probably don't have to, because we are already an established group. So it's more of a call to refine and affirm what we have or what we need or the direction that we're heading. So we're not necessarily trying to create everything, because we have some of these pieces. But I will be pulling each module, and I could probably share with you, David, like what a module looks like. But we won't be doing every single thing in that agenda, first of all, because a lot of it's in person and we can't, so we're having to adapt. But what are the tools, what are the exercises, what are the questions that we need to ask that will help us get the answers for those modules to create the pieces that then go into the charter? Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody else?
I was just going to make a comment on the purpose, goals, and the clarification on that particular, the red one on the bottom. I would guess that I think it would be interesting if we asked individually the respondents, what is the mission and vision? And I bet we'd get several different answers. So I think while we might have clarity there, it might be individualized clarity. And so it'd be interesting. I think a value in doing all of this will be in making sure that our elevator pitches are all the same.
Well,
about what we're up to.
Well, Francis, you could not have set it up any better. Like, that is the perfect segue into what we're going to talk about next.
You must have hacked into our system. Yes, you're spot on, Francis, and that's where we want to spend some time throughout the rest of our meeting as a group to discuss these the shared vision, mission, goals, and strategies. And one, before we dive into that, just to follow up on David, I think as we work through this, we want everybody to participate through the chat, but also think about how after this meeting, who would be willing to help us refine these. So there'll be an opportunity at the end. We're looking to expand this working strategic planning committee beyond Andrea and I. And we're targeting the idea of meeting again in about a month via Zoom to really quickly get down to the brass tacks and answer some of those questions that Francis has just posed. So yeah, for the next 45, 50 minutes, that's what we want to do is focus in on this. So
keep in mind too that when we're talking about having other people help us to do this work, this might be a one-shot deal. We aren't asking necessarily for a long-term commitment about anything, but to get through this process, and part of it will be committees, forming the committees in a more substantial way, and those roles and responsibilities. But for right now, we just need to get through the work. So it would be a working group just to get us through these parts. So don't be afraid.
And just a little sneak preview at the end, we'll talk about that. I as kind of a member of the organizational structure committee, I'm going to take the lead on trying to coordinate the charter, the drafting of the charter. That doesn't mean that Jack writes it all. There are sections of it that I'm going to have to reach out to other members of this working group to say, help me fill in these boxes. And again, it's something we want to accomplish, I think, in the next 4 to 8 weeks. It's not a heavy lift of time, but it will take a little bit of extra time between now and middle of February. So as we prepared for this, Andrea and I started saying, okay, what is the vision statement for the Ohio River Recreation Trail? What's our mission statement? Do we have goals? We have purpose statements? And lo and behold, I found some of these, and I will admit right now I was a little confused when I went searching for them, but what you're looking at here is what is on our website. So one page, we actually have this paragraph labeled as vision. And in that, we say the vision of this volunteer-led Ohio River Recreation Trail Steering Committee is to create a 274-mile land and waterway self-guided adventure trail that connects people to opportunities for outdoor adventure, recreation, discovery on along the Ohio River from Portsmouth to West Point. It will serve to promote tourism, economic development, facilitate education about the valley's unique history, culture, and beauty, and promote environmental awareness, safety, respecting lands and waters with a leave no trace ethic. The trail can be enjoyed by either paddlers, powerboaters, cyclists, motorists, hikers, etc. That's what we say our vision is. Now, when I sent out the homework, and when Andrea and I were preparing for this, we were both reminded that a good vision statement is usually about one sentence, and it should be inspiring and basically discuss what your outcomes are, or what your desired outcome is for why you exist. So that was interesting. That's what we say to the world of what our vision is. And likewise, well, not so much likewise, actually, I searched on the website for something labeled a mission statement. There really wasn't anything labeled such. The closest thing I found was on our landing page was this 2 or 3 sentence statement that the Ohio River Recreation Trail connects people and communities to opportunities for adventure on and along the Ohio River. We serve to provide information on river safety, help improve public access infrastructure, and celebrate the unique beauty and culture of the Ohio River. I don't know if that's our mission statement or not. It sort of resembles one, maybe. I'm not sure. And that's where we want to spend some time today. So in your homework, you hopefully spent a little time on vision and mission and strategies and goals. And so what we'd like to do next, and I want to just ask a little bit of patience, that we take a few minutes and in the chat, type in what your thoughts on the vision should say, but don't hit enter. Let's give each other about 5 or 6, 7 minutes, whatever we need to type that in, and then collectively we'll hit enter, and that everyone can see that, and then we can begin to kind of talk about that. Now, I don't expect that we're going to wordsmith a vision statement today. That's not today's exercise. The exercise today is to collect your thoughts, your input. It'll be recorded on this chat, on this recording, and then we're hoping that somebody will take the lead after today's meeting and review those and refine those to the point where we can come back to each other in a month and have it ratified. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's different. It's sort of like the Goldilocks syndrome. You know, is this too hard? Is this too soft? Or is it just right? And that's what we're trying to find today. Anything else, Andrea, before we kind of let everybody go?
I will be putting in the chat a prompt of a question that we'd like you to answer, which is describe the clear and inspirational long-term change resulting from your work, and what do you aim to achieve. So this should basically be a comment or a statement that you thought about when we asked you to look at the vision statement in the homework. And the reason we're having you type it in but don't hit enter, because we'd like you to put a little bit of thought in it. And before you see everybody else's answers. And we may see some continuity of thought that many of us have the same answers, and that will make it easier to piece those things together. But it may be that we have very different answers, and it will require more cobbling together to get to where we really want to be. So that's why we're having you wait to hit enter. I'm going to go ahead and put this chat in here so that you can, or the prompt, so that you can think on that a little bit. And then we can discuss it after it's in. I should have had these done. Okay. So those are your marching orders, and we invite you to include a clear and inspirational long-term change resulting from the work. Looking at the current vision that we have there, you know, think about how maybe you could more succinctly say that, or what are the important parts of that vision that you think are relevant for what you hope to achieve. What part of that is inspirational? Is it the punctuation and all the commas? There's a lot of listing going on. Some questions that they also ask are, what is your desired end state? What's the big picture? What does the project look like in 25 years? I don't mean to interrupt your thoughts, but I will say that mission, vision, purpose can be very confusing, and there's many different schools of thought about what each of them is. And we decided just to go with this, and we figure we'll come out of it with some really good statements, no matter which questions we ask or which process we use.
Yeah, I would echo that, and Andrea, that in my experience with organizations, it's easy to get stumbled by the nomenclature, and a lot of it's the process. If we were meeting in person, we'd probably be using a whiteboard with sticky notes and all sorts of tactical solutions to kind of vet ideas in a more quick manner. But we don't have that luxury, and so doing it this way is the next best thing. But I think at the end of the day, it's that we reaffirm, you know, why we're all here, what we think the vision is, and that's what we're working towards. So that when we can plug that in our charter in 4 or 8 weeks, we've again reaffirmed and where we plant that stake in the ground, so to speak.
Yeah, there are no wrong answers on this, by the way.
I'm looking around. I can't tell if everybody's done typing or not. Do we need more time?
Yes.
Okay, good. Also, I would say this isn't necessarily easy, because you feel like you're the whole collaboration, the whole project seems to be hinging on this one statement. But remember all the good work that you're doing that exemplifies that statement too.
One of the clarifiers that I hone in on when I looked at this is what would success look like? What are you trying to create? And then kind of pair that up with a 10 or 20 or 25-year horizon. It's tough. You got to kind of be a visionary and a little bit altruistic, but that's how you sort of create a compass to follow, I think.
We'll give you another minute and then we'll start to hit enter. You can continue to input your thoughts, certainly even after that minute, because this will be a discussion. I really like the method of entering, but waiting to hit enter, because I find that too often I'm more interested in reading what everybody else wrote. This kind of focuses you in on what you're writing. If I would just be quiet and let you do it. Hey, you want to go ahead, Jack?
Yeah, I think if everybody's okay, we'll go ahead and ask you to go ahead and hit enter, and then we can kind of view.
With the understanding that you can keep putting things in.
Absolutely. This is a process. I always look at this like peeling an onion. You start with a lot, and then you start peeling away until you get really what's important. So what I'm seeing, our vision, the Ohio is a clean, safe, and healthy river known nationally for its recreational opportunities and vibrant historic river communities. Another concept, the Ohio River is a safe and accessible recreational corridor with vibrant river towns connected by river and land trails. Develop and maintain the Ohio River Recreation Trail to connect people to the Ohio River and to promote its use as recreational jewel for paddling, hiking, and fishing. A nationally recognized land and water trail from Pittsburgh to Cairo with a digital guide that aids planning and navigation. I have a question. Where does the development of long-term management and structure belong? As an executive director, board, sustainable funding, the ORRT is an organization created to promote the Ohio River. Another concept, to enhance the quality of life, ensure environmental protection, and enrich the economic vitality of our region through diverse, safe, outdoor recreational opportunities. The Ohio River Recreation Trail vision, to create a multimodal system of self-guided outdoor adventure recreation experiences in the Ohio River Valley from Portsmouth, Ohio to West Point, Kentucky, and promote vibrant network of river town communities.
Okay. Okay. Some additional commentary. Good. Inspire all people to actively connect with ORRT with sensitivity to the natural environment while embracing the history and culture. Great. Francis.
Elevates the Ohio River Valley as an asset for economic development, tourism, and recreation. The river links communities together through a shared history and future. The ORRT aims to alleviate some of our shared challenges and leverages the strengths of a broader community, and connecting people and communities to clean water, wildlife, outdoor adventure along the Ohio River. So there's a number of themes that overlap in many of these. I see, obviously, the adventure recreation, connecting people to the resource, seeing it as an economic and tourism driver.
While still embracing the natural history and the environmental sustainability. So what we hope to do from that, Jack?
Yes. Well, first of all, just a question for the group. Obviously, we want to collect these, and we would like someone to take the lead on or a group of people take the lead on refining them into a more succinct and unified statement. But any questions or initial comments, number one, about what we have on our website, or number two, of some of these ideas that have been thrown out? Brew, you can unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Maybe would you welcome any feedback about some of these? Like, I know we don't have post-it notes and we're not voting, but maybe we could invite people to say what they like. I mean, which ones they really like. What are the key elements, as Andrew was suggesting, that they like in these suggested phrasings?
Absolutely, yeah.
Good
Anything
idea.
jump out to you that you really like, or sticks out
Well,
to you?
I really like David Wick's. Frankly, number one is I think it's the shortest, and it gets at safe and accessible recreation with vibrant river towns connected by river and land trails. I mean, I just think it's really nice and tight. I like it a lot. David?
More brief than the current vision.
Oh, yeah, but I just think it hits the key elements, and maybe there's some additional wordsmithing we can steal from some of these other wonderful comments or suggestions.
I agree with that, and I would group both Brewster's and David's. I felt like hit that that vision of if we could achieve everything, what would it be? And that's captured very succinctly, I think, within that safe, accessible, clean, known for recreation, and the communities that are along it. I think that's a big piece that I mean, mine was very straightforward, very, very detailed, and this is what I think the geography ought to be and what should be with it. So I very much like the vision.
Okay, so to Brewster's points, are there any other comments on any of the ones that were put in there? So you like the words safe, healthy river, recreational opportunities, connected by trails?
I like Chris Lorentz's term to enhance the quality of life.
Yeah, I like that one as well. I didn't include safety, although I realize safety is a gating issue for people to engage with the river. I almost think that that's more of a image and brand problem the river has, but I see where it would be. It's a showstopper. It's it is critical to what we do, and so I don't know if we can That's why I didn't include safety, but I can see why you would need to have safety and cleanliness as some thought would need to be put into whether or not it needs to be included as in the vision, specifically because it is a problem we know.
Well, and there are some schools of thought out there that you can't make the river any more safe. That's up to the users, and you can provide people with the tools to help them make their more safe decisions. But do your actions make the river itself any safer, or does it contribute to a safer experience?
So that's why I was referring to it as an image branding problem. And we, in the times in which I've had a chance to paddle around with people like Dave Wicks, we get in conversations about, it's great that what happens is we'll have news headlines come out that say that there's an algae bloom somewhere, which is probably important and people need to know about it, but there's never another headline that says the river is clean again, everyone can go back and use it. So, I mean, it is and you don't hear about dead bodies floating, and you don't hear about Brewster floating in his kayak, and he's not dead.
Yeah, I wonder if you're putting the word safe in your vision statement, then by default, you're acknowledging it's not safe? Because I think for the most part, the river is safe for me to paddle, for the most part.
Yeah, that's why I kind of think we've let it, since there has been no entity telling the story such as ORRT prior to our existence, its story was being told, no one was defining it for people, so the story was getting defined and the image was getting defined by, journalists and fake news.
Well, I think the Ohio River has some certain unique safety considerations that most people that go out there to recreate it don't understand. I think, Jack, yeah, it's safe for you to paddle because you understand it. You understand what it's all about. I don't think a lot of people have that understanding and go out there without it and get themselves in trouble very quickly, either going too close to a barge or getting too close to a dam or what have you. So, yeah, the concept of including safety in the vision statement, I think it has a place, but, I also agree with the fact that a lot of the safety aspects of the river are generated by bad safety practices, people finding dead bodies and things like that. You hear all the negative stuff, you don't hear the positive stuff. So I just, I think it'd be good to have in there.
I think it's more about an inviting place, because this is the vision, and when it's inviting, it is safe, it is clean, it is beautiful, because we can help, as Andrea said, I think the importance of our role is giving the tools for a safe trip on the Ohio. But we can't change that it's a heavily used river that's complicated.
And you also can't change what tools people choose to use or not use, whether it's the Ohio River or not the Ohio River. We see the same thing on the Cuyahoga, Lake Erie, everywhere.
Exactly.
I like Jody's statement of inspire all people. And so I think it is encouraging, in the long term, hopefully all residents are invited to use the river, I like the word all.
Yeah, my use of that was, my concern is not everybody has easy or even knows they have access or should be taking advantage of access. The underprivileged population always falls away on these things.
Well, and the other aspect, and maybe somebody touched on this, but I see the ORRT as being more than just paddling. And you kind of touch on it, it's the history, it's the culture, it's the river towns. It's not just about paddling. So maybe there are people who don't paddle who can realize the benefits of this. And I think that that's important to keep in your vision, that it is for all people, not just, it's easy to get into just being about paddlers, but there are plenty of people who appreciate and utilize the river shore or the history and the natural history and everything else that goes along with it.
I think that's a challenge for us, Andrea. When I look at the Tennessee River line, they explicitly say they are for paddle sports. And so it really focuses their work on that. As we say, yes, we're for everybody, but the bottom line is Jerry is the only one that I know that owns a motorboat, even though Brewster lives on a dead motorboat. And so paddlers. And so I think conceptually, it's a great idea to be open for everybody. And I think the digital guide is open for everybody. But as we're trying to think about who we have in the room, they tend to be paddlers. And so they mix. I don't know. We have very few rowers. And so is this one of those things that we want to think about for our vision is who are we really trying to reach? If we were marina operators, maybe we should have some marina operators on our little call.
Right. Well, I was thinking multi-recreationally, bike, paddling, not necessarily motorized, but walking along the river, camping along the river, multi-recreational, and embracing the river. But that is a topic of discussion, right? How narrow or how broad do you want to be? Sometimes I think of, on some of the rivers that I work on, that I don't think of a water trail just as the path that's on the water. I think of it as the access points that you use to get into the water. It's the towns that you visit along the way. It's the riparian corridor. It's, your view shed when you're on the river and from the shore to the river. Anyway, I could go on and on.
I really think the dynamic comes from the natural and built environments intersecting and how they relate to each other. Because if it wasn't for the built environment, we wouldn't be able to reach the natural environment and all of that. And it adds places to get in and get out and to commune differently than you would on the river. So,
right.
Should the, and I raised the question, but should the vision include consideration of the development of an organization dedicated to all of these things or some of these things that we've talked about here? Because without an organization, if you're going to look down 25 years down the road, if you don't have some organization, formalized or otherwise, the thing just goes away. So it has to be managed in some manner, and in order to do that, you have to have an organization. So do we need to incorporate that the vision is to create an organization that supports, promotes, all the other good things that we're talking about here? Do we need to incorporate that?
I would see that, Jerry, as more in the mission category. Our mission is to build an organization that will create a trail that will do X, Y, and Z, something like that. But I think the vision is like, if you could wave a magic wand and in 20 years, what would be big, bold, and different that you would feel like was worth all your energy developing? And it's not necessarily the organization, it's a clean river that a lot of people use that promotes economic and community development among its community, something like that, to me at least, says,
Okay.
what the vision is. But I think you're good. It's a good key point about the mission, and maybe actually that could be the organizational piece could be one of its goals. One of its goals in order to implement the mission is to create an organization that will in turn manage this project.
All right, good. Thank you.
I was sort of getting at my vision could maybe be moved into a mission. My vision could be a mission statement more.
Yeah, right.
I was trying to get at what, as in my head, what was the differentiating? What is ORRT that nobody else did? What do we do that nobody else does?
Right.
But I would also suggest, instead of create, since we are created, maybe we just be the organization that does X, Y, Z, instead of stating that we're creating it. I think we've already created it, sort of. We've been around for a while.
Morph what the form is at some point, but basically this is the group that is moving it forward. It might look differently in the future.
If I could go back to what David Wick said, and maybe I didn't quite hear it right. I'm sorry. I had a boat mechanic call me. David, did you say that you thought that the focus should be on paddling?
Well, I made the comment that the Tennessee River line focuses just on paddling.
Right.
And something that you might want to consider, as the majority of our members are paddlers. And maybe that's just who we have in the room. Now, I know that on many of our conference calls and some of the Zoom webinars, we've had a variety of other people. And I think there's interest, but none of us, to my knowledge, really manages marinas or have any knowledge about so I don't know if that's part of it or not, but it's a different category, the motorboaters, and even bicycle people it's a different world. And are we about that corridor and recreation on it? I just think we need to be clear on that as a group.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I guess for me, it's real important that we not be focused primarily even on paddlers. I mean, I feel like the economic impact in terms of travel and tourism for the river communities, for example, is going to be much greater from cyclists and power boaters than it will be, frankly, through paddlers. Okay, so I think we ought to be have a broad definition, as we actually do in the current vision, which is too long. That are when we say recreational opportunities, we are talking about a wide range of uses of the Ohio on the shore, especially for cycling, and in the river itself for paddling, for power boating, for fishing, for canoeing and kayaking, for bird watching. So I think we ought to be pretty broad in what recreational activities we are trying to encourage and promote and provide information about.
Yeah, that's sort of the direction that I was heading to. Well, in the interest of time, I hate to cut off a robust discussion. Obviously, this will be discussed more. And if you have other comments to put in, please do. I was taking notes while you were speaking, so I will include those too. And what we're going to do is look at what everybody put in, try to pull out some common themes that everybody found to be important, and with the help of others who are on here, cobble together a vision statement and put it out there where maybe at a future session, we intend to present these back to you for your reaction. And that's where we can maybe do a little bit more wordsmithing or or even making sure that we have all of the major points within that. Again, doing a vision and mission is difficult, even under the best of circumstances. So we appreciate the input that you have done, and I do see some common things amongst all of those, and I think that we can get to that point where we can present something back to you.
Andrea,
right?
just to follow up on Brewster's comment, Brewster, I think that is the ideal. And maybe it's the importance of having a vision, because we need to go out and recruit more people or identify those folks who have that passion and mission for that. But as of now, we don't have many power boaters or bird watchers, even though I am an active bird watcher. But that's just me. Okay.
So Andrea, are we ready to transition to mission?
Yes, I'd
Why
say
don't you
so.
go ahead and type in the prompt. So I think this has been a great exercise. It's a tough challenge to decide what vision means and what mission means. Again, for me, and here's in front of you what's on our website. I don't know if that's a mission statement or not. I'm not sure, but to me, vision statements are to inspire outcomes or talk about outcomes. And mission statements, I think, reflect more of the effort to get to those outcomes. It's sort of how you arrange your verb tenses. So I think Andrea's going to type a prompt or two in, and then we're going to do the very same thing. Everybody type in what they think a mission statement is or a purpose statement. This charter module I've been looking at with the National Park Service doesn't even use the term mission. It's called a purpose. But it really is, why do we exist? Or another way to look at it, if we didn't exist, what would be missing?
Is it cheating if I just use the same thing that I came up with, vision that identified as now a mission statement? Yes.
Type in it again. Edit it.
There's no cheating, Francis.
Yeah, no plagiarizing of yourself.
So, again, what our homework, it sets a tone, mission statement sets a tone for direction, specific and brief. How do you plan to get there? Different ideas about whether you should change or not.
Andrea, are you typing in a prompt?
That's supposed to be sentence, not set. Sorry. Again, if you can type, but don't hit enter yet. I'm going to change that prompt. You can use this one if you'd like, too.
that one from me, connecting people, that was meant to be in the vision, not mission. So I forgot to hit enter.
And again, we could debate for quite a long time about the difference between vision and mission. Okay, I'd say go ahead and hit enter and we can start some discussion on mission.
So I see to create and disseminate information useful to enjoyment of the Ohio River recreational corridor that focus on the natural environment and river communities. BREW is to develop the Ohio River Recreation Trail, providing world-class outdoor adventure opportunities that promote tourism and economic development for river communities. Great. To create and enhance a land and water trail along the Ohio River for outdoor adventure, recreation, and tourism. Richards is succinct. Promote Ohio River Basin recreation. Francis, the Ohio River Recreation Trail promotes and elevates the Ohio River Valley as an asset of economic development, tourism, recreation. As the river does, ORRT organization links communities together through a shared history and future, aims to alleviate some of our shared challenges and leverages strengths in broader community. Convene a diverse group dedicated to enhancing the ORRT for recreation, education, economic development, and celebration of all its assets. To connect communities along the river through a world-class land and water trail and tourism opportunities. Partnership, the mission is, the partnership is to bring together recreation, tourism, individuals, organizations, and river towns to enhance access and use the river corridor.
So what I'm seeing is that perhaps this mission, if that's indeed what it was that was on the website, isn't too far off from others' thoughts, and just maybe needs a little bit of refining. And again, many of the thoughts that came in about the mission are similar in nature, and so we'll try to put those together. Any comments or questions on the mission or anyone's reactions to what was input?
You know, as I think about it, that first sentence is actually pretty damn good on what's already on the website.
One? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I like it the more I look at it. I think Jerry wrote it. Amazingly enough, right?
I had help.
So that's good. Then you were on the right course, right?
Well, what I don't like is that it has the name of the organization of the entity the entity we're creating. The idea that it connects people and communities. So the whole notion of people and we're trying to bind together this notion of outdoor recreation and benefiting communities. And I think that kind of does it pretty well. Jeez.
Yeah.
Personally, that's all. I'm sorry I didn't write it.
So I think our work will be easier on that one, but still we need a committee to get together and talk about it.
Any other comments about this mission statement? Because we do want to dive into some of the goals with the time we have left, and we've got about 24 minutes.
I'm just going to reiterate. I did actually like what was there already on the website for the most part, and what I didn't actually get anything out because I kept going back and changing it, and I was actually starting with what was already there. So I think it's pretty good.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you for your input on that.
And by the way, the Great Miami Riverway isn't technically their mission, but it's the key thing that they have on websites. The Riverway connects the land and water trails of the Great Miami River to vibrant riverfront communities. It's kind of similar.
Right, so then how do we distinguish that we're different? Because it's the Ohio River.
Right.
That's what sets us apart. Okay, so the goals were taken from the website, and we just have to say that these are not necessarily the goals of the work plan that Russ developed in getting the work done. These, think of these in terms of the long-term goals of the organization or the collaboration of the project. And we're going to go through each of these. This was part of your homework as well. We know that you may have put down several answers of, okay, so we've got these goals. How are we going to accomplish these goals? We're going to look at those strategies, and that's what we want you to input in the chat. Just before you hit enter, put in one strategy of how
Well, first
to.
of all, Andrew, if I could say, I think we may even start, I'm sorry to tell you, but these are what we indicated a while back as our goals. They may not be written about what we might consider our current goals to be. In other words, you're talking about, okay, here's a goal. Let's talk about strategies to make this goal come to life, right? That's what you're saying?
Right, because these are the only goals that we know that we have.
I know, but I'm suggesting we consider rewriting the goals.
Yes. Yes, we could do that.
I think the problem is I think these are too meshed together. There's too many items in one goal.
Oh, okay. Well, let's think about this for a second here.
I'm happy to go with what you're suggesting. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw things into turmoil.
Well, I think, Brew, you kind of bring up an interesting point. Maybe, Andrew, we adjust slightly. Let's just look at the 4 goals, because I'm not sure everyone even knows what they are. First, if you would, maybe just click through and then.
Right, and how about some feedback on what these goals are,
Yeah.
maybe how they can be changed, rather than looking at the specific strategies for these goals, if you think that they may have changed, since I'm not sure when these were created. This is the outward piece that we are saying to the public, taken from the website, that these are what our goals are. So, okay, so if we're not going to develop strategies yet, we want to confirm or change what those goals are.
Yeah, and maybe I spoke too quickly. Like number 2, basically the whole notion of improving public access to the Ohio for recreational activities. Fine, that should be a goal. And under that goal is working with the different communities, to generate revenue and resources to make that happen, et cetera. And I think the whole notion of number 3 is essentially, how do we help our communities get the most benefit economically and economic development and job creation through us helping them become even more attractive places for people to visit. How do you make that tight? So I don't think that's bad at all.
All right, well,
I think these goals all have merit. I think what part of this exercise would be, have we thought about strategies and actions to meet those goals, to hit those goals?
Yeah. I think we should at least proceed and take each goal, and if everybody's inputting one strategy, but then we can also include comments about how we think this goal should change. Because our strategies may still apply to pieces of it or parts of it or some of these goals completely. So does that make sense?
It does, and what I'd like to comment on is with this first strategy, you know, the safety, respect for private lands, leave no trace ethics, you know, all that stuff, that's all recreational. The part of this particular goal that doesn't belong to me is the promotes tourism. Everything else here is recreationally based, and then we have promote tourism. I think we need to take tourism out of this goal and make it a standalone or incorporate it with another existing goal that speaks more to tourism, community development, all those things.
I agree.
Anybody else have comments about that? I can see that.
Makes sense. Did we agree in the vision statement that our vision is all recreation sports, not just paddling? Did we reach consensus on that?
I would say everything's on the table. I mean, today we've collected input. We're going to want to send some folks away after today's meeting to wordsmith it to bring back to the group to respond to that, Richard.
And I'm just saying, because this assumes all forms just about. So I do think it's difficult to talk about a goal that's based on something that we haven't necessarily agreed upon as a vision. But I guess we can maybe make that part irrelevant. Whether it's just paddling or all the above, are there pieces of that everything fits together with?
Yeah, I'm sort of with throwing a wrench into it because your goals always should align to your mission and vision, and because we have ideas out there, but we haven't solidified them, we could be kind of forcing things around instead of going by the proven process.
Right.
So
yeah, not a proven process, by the way.
Well, no, just in standard in creating mission, vision, goals. That's
Right.
typically the exercise is you come back to the goals once everybody there's consensus on mission and vision.
Okay.
And I think that the goals aren't going to change much. And maybe I still think we can sort of work through some of the obvious things like.
Okay, so let's at least, with the limited amount of time that we have left, let's at least look at the 4 goals and provide some commentary on it, like the fact that I think it was Jerry who said promote tourism doesn't fit in there. So let's have that discussion, and then as any information that we gather for that is going to help us to improve our goals, no matter what our vision or mission ends up being, because we do feel like these are goals of our organization. It may get refined when we verify the vision and mission, but I think we can agree that most of these are goals and just, okay, so let's have a discussion around each of the goals. You can put it in the chat or you can talk about it.
Andrea, can you go to the slide that has all 4 goals on the same slide?
This one?
Yeah, thank you.
So Jerry, I think it was you who said that promote tourism doesn't fit there, right?
Yeah, and what I'm looking at here is let's move tourism just down to the third bullet. Promote tourism and coordinate with county and local travel tourism entities. You know, I see it belonging right there, or just remove it from the first bullet and let the third bullet stand on its own.
Okay.
And then to address Richard's comment, we could actually, in that first bullet, we could take out all of the identified recreational types and just state, you know, while facilitating recreation along the Ohio River or Ohio River corridor. That way we don't identify or miss anybody as far as recreational opportunity.
That makes a lot of sense, Jerry.
The one thing I'm a fan of when you dig into the goals, because it's clearly stated in it above, to not always be repeating because it's just extra words, the Ohio River, because the goals are assumed to be part of the organization. So you're not seeing it on every single line, Ohio River, and that way you can actually see the content more, but that's just my thought.
Okay, because it is, these are the goals of the Ohio River Recreation Trail. The Ohio River is assumed. So we're not trying to promote respect for private lands on the Muskingum River, right?
Right. It's a less is more
Right.
that I'm not always really good about.
Yes, good point. Jody,
No,
your comment one goes under recreating with sensitivity and safety. Can you
Well, I mean, that I agree. There were two very different things going on with that first goal. When Jerry said move tourism out of there, yes, and then what you're really left with is let's care about how we approach our recreation activities.
Yeah, I think safety, respect for private lands, and leave no trace are three parts. Are there others? You know, it's three pieces picked out.
But then don't they become strategies to help make the goal come to life?
Yeah,
And so where those are three set strategies.
Yeah, good.
And I see a comment from Francis about where is co-branding and signage. To me, that would fall into a strategy underneath. Could be more than one of those goals, but that to me is a strategy and activity to achieve that goal, personally.
right? What do we want to do? The strategies are how we're going to get there.
Yeah.
Well, so maybe I phrased it badly. I was moving fast, Jack, when typing that, and now I've unfortunately getting distracted with paid work right now. But the I think there is one of our goals with the organization, isn't it, to create a unifying, what is the unifying body? And so in the hard and fast, the brass tacks, the tangibleness of that would be co-branding and signage for the corridor, but that doesn't, but the real value is probably in the cohesiveness or the community, that creating a community around from Portsmouth to where we are, Louisville.
So does that fit into any of those goals, Francis, or do you think that that should be an additional goal that we have?
See, I was going to put I literally had branding as one of my strategies, and I was going to put it into, you know, a goal associated with tourism. I had it associated with the first one because I think you'll use kiosks and branding to communicate anything about all of these activities. But
so it would be under that goal number 3 about coordinating with county and municipal travel and tourism.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm
Be
inclined
under both of them, under 3 and number 4 both.
I'm inclined to say having a strong brand is a goal, because your brand has to be throughout your entire program.
But that, we had the conversation when we were talking mission and vision about the development of the organization. And yes, we've developed an organization now, but should that not be one of the strategies? I'm not sure that it fits any of these particular goals, a goal in and of itself of a sustainable organization that does all of these other things.
Yeah, and that speaks to my comment I made earlier, David.
Yeah.
But
Where is the
these
okay.
goals, if they're on our website, I mean, creating a strong brand to me is important. It's a work plan goal. I'm not sure it's what you tell your customer your goal is. You know, Nike doesn't come out and say our goal is to have a nice brand.
True.
Where is the goal? Where is the basic goal? And I always get bogged down in goals, visions, strategies. Where is the basic goal to build and maintain the trail? The actual trail itself, dude. Where is that goal in the overall overarching things? We have a lot of peripheral discussions promoting tourism, how to utilize it, but where is the building a functional and maintaining and updating the trail?
Probably under number 2.
Yeah, provide increased access to the Ohio River.
That's access, but is that all we're doing? Is providing I mean, we're doing a digital guide. We're building. We're adding features to it. I mean, it just seems like we're missing the key element of building and maintaining the trail through time.
Yeah, I feel like we've had this discussion before with regards to, are we building a tangible trail, like literally a bike path, or if you know, in the most dumbed down version of it, or or a water trail, literally, are we doing that? And I think that gets to my comment from the top of the session is I think Brewster thinks we're doing that. I don't know if do we all think we're doing that? I don't know.
Do we do that through number 2? And I think one of our goals is to have a sustainable organization. And that's where things like the branding and things could fall. Because it can't be, we're here to stimulate that activity, but is it our role to actually be the nuts and bolts? Because we're going to be relying on municipalities and other organizations and developers and all of that for actual physical infrastructure.
I think one of the considerations should be that we are developing information so that people can actually use the trail. We're developing that information along the trail for them to use through the digital guide and through the networking we do with the communities and the agencies.
And that's what I feel is missing, Jerry, in the goals. You know, that is a function that this group will be doing through time, making sure it's updated. I mean, if there isn't an entity doing that, we don't have a trail. So that's all I was commenting on.
Yeah.
And I can't put words to it well, but it just feels like we're missing that goal. If it is the digital guide is a big piece of what we're doing, and that's going to take ongoing maintenance, and that's not in here at all.
Well, Dave's not close to retirement yet.
No, and he can never retire.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Russ Clark isn't like the creation of the trail, the part of our work plan that we're hoping to get to, like.
Yeah, it was the original thought that it would be a creation of an actual trail system, but what it actually morphed into is something far better, and that is the digital guide.
Yeah.
And as it's been stated, the information, the source for information is really the critical part of our effort. And
right.
We can still go forward, and I'm going to pop this into the comments. We can still go forward and identify where there are major gaps for public access along the river from a planning standpoint for future consideration by local municipalities to provide better access to the river, especially upstream from our rivertown communities for potential vendors to utilize. But we aren't going to necessarily get down to the detail of designing or identifying future public access sites or designing them.
We certainly can refer them to you, Russ, to have you design them.
Or David, I think that what we can do is if New Richmond finds a way to fund one, then we can facilitate the coordination and communication of that effort to the other communities. That's what I see our role as being.
Right.
Hey,
So-
folks, I'm looking at our clock, and we're fast approaching 2 o'clock. We just got 3 or 4 minutes. Certainly, we can stay on if people have time, but I know some people might have to jump off. Andrea, can we just pause this conversation for a moment and go to the?
Can I add one more item here first? And one piece that I am excited about is information about the entire watershed. It's amazing how many people here in Louisville go paddling on the Ohio River and don't realize it starts in Pittsburgh, or don't realize. And so how that fits into one of these goals is that I really wish we could figure out a way of encouraging people to investigate the entire watershed, both the water quality and the geography of it. And to me, that's part of, that's the advantage of having a long-term or a long trail. That we really get
and I
at that.
think that is one of those pieces that will have to be a decision that's made. You know, how big do you go? How broad are your responsibilities or your areas of focus, or is
Oh, I'm not saying to expand our scope right now, but even paddlers from Portsmouth down to Louisville, it'd be great if those residents started to see the Ohio River as a basin connected to all these other states.
That's a job for the Ohio River Basin Alliance, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
So I want to ask, because we are running out of time, we need a subcommittee to take what we've discussed this afternoon around vision, mission, goals, strategies. We need 2 or 3 or 4 people who will be willing to work on that and then be able to come back in a month and give a recommendation or report out on how we can refine and sharpen the saw, so to speak. Since I'm involved with the organizational structure committee, I'll continue to work on the charter. That's basically codifying what comes out of these other subcommittees. And I'm willing to do that, but Andrew and I are looking for a couple of volunteers to step up. We suggest we meet on February 8th and do another session like this. And during that session would be the report out of the recommendation on what a vision, mission, goals, and strategies should look like.
Oh, look, he's raised. Are you asking a question or are you volunteering?
I'm volunteering.
Okay.
I'm happy to help.
So David Rudder, Jody,
I'll help.
Jerry,
I just said I would as well in the chat,
great. Francis,
but I can't lead. I did also say I can help, but I can't lead. I can participate actively, can't lead.
Rudder had his hand up first, so he's leading. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that.
I'm not the retired guy.
No, you're not. You know how to work still.
So I have David Rudder, Jerry, Francis, Jody. Anybody else that I missed? Okay, that's good. And thank you, because it really is our goal to not just have it be the 3 retired guys and the 2 RTCA people putting this together. We want broader input. And this is a good way to at least get that vision, mission, and goals, so articulate, to a place where the others can react to it, and we're that much closer to really expressing what this organization is all about. Like I said, it's not easy and it's not going to get done like that, but we're that much closer and giving it some thought to what this really is all about.
So if I can jump in just because to be a little bit of a taskmaster, the 4 of you, I'll work with you guys. I would say by February 1st, your work should be ready to be submitted to Andrea and I so that and you can help us put together an agenda for February 8th. So that's like a 3-week turnaround. We're asking you to jointly kind of refine mission, vision, goals, strategies. And then when we get together on the 8th, you will kind of share that out.
And they'll have the benefit of everything that's in the chat, correct, Andrea?
Correct. Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. We will provide you with what we already have and what came in through the chat, and then whatever other additional notes that we took, so that, and with some of those leading questions that help all of us to determine what those things are going to be, to refine it. Okay? Good. So look for an email from Jack and I. Maybe it means having, you know, a short discussion to talk about how we want to do that. But getting the information out to you and then having something to present back to everybody.
Okay.
Thanks.
And then those pieces are going to go into the charter. These are just some of the other essentials that we're going to be covering in future sessions after we react to and more specifically nail down those things that we were just working on. These will not each be a session. We will combine some of these pull-out activities that help us to get to the answers and the pieces that go in the charter for those essentials. Okay.
One last comment. Whenever I leave a meeting, I always remember a question or a comment I wish I would have made. So feel free, if you go away and think of something you want to email me or Andrea with a follow-up, that would be great. We welcome that.
Yes.
We just did that.
Just did that.
One step ahead of you and Andrea, just for today. Don't expect it always.
Great minds. Yes, and thank you for helping us kind of muddle through this first process. It is important. It sets the tone for everything else that comes after it. And we will continue. I think that getting everybody thinking in terms of the ORRT and all that it can be, that's going to help us doing the other essential work that needs to be done. And we're going to come out of it with a more robust, great product that will help us to help all of you to convey what the ORRT is and where we're headed. So thank you for your participation.
Yeah, thanks everybody. This has been really good work.
Good job.
Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.